Hey, everybody. Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go. Because
Today's show, we have Greg Spadaccini. Did I say it right?
You did.
I do much better with Italian names than some of the other ones, but I'm married to a Basiglio, so
There you go.
I have to spend every day on the phone correcting people about my wife's last name. But are you known by friends and family as Spaddy?
I go by Spaddy or Greg.
Greg or Spaddy?
I introduce myself as Greg, but I like being called Spaddy. But it's just
Spaddy's badass.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to go by
I
that?
had a good old family nickname.
So I met you in the earlier part of this year. I don't remember exactly when you opened up your store there in South Tampa, but was it in the end of 2019?
Yeah, we opened up November 2019.
So for people who don't recognize you or your name, what's your business?
So I own Spaddy's Coffee. We have a location in Seminole Heights, which started out as a trailer. And then November 2019, we opened down in South Tampa, right next to MacDill Air Force Base, in our first brick and mortar shop.
Did I remember that you had a presence in Armature Works, or you were looking at that? Or
No armature.
we had some conversation. Maybe there's another. You had a friend that was there. There was
Joel, we got a buddy of mine, Joel, with Union slinging coffee over at
That's
Armature
probably
Works.
what it was
Yeah.
that I'm thinking of. So, I mean, the coffee business has really kind of taken off in the past. As far as what you do, I would say the past 10 years. I mean, obviously, Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts became, ubiquitous in everybody's life much further back than that. But I grew up in the age of Folgers cans, but coffee's become like bourbon or wine where, the beans, the where it's from, all this other stuff, which I'm going to ask you about. It's really become its own
Absolutely.
niche world. And I think it's really cool. How did you get into that world?
The coffee world?
Yeah.
I was working in the hospital. So prior to opening the coffee shop, I was working midnight shift over here at St. Joe's in the ER. And if you know anybody that works midnight shift, we're just coffee addicts. Like yourself,
Well, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be. If you have small children, if you're an attorney, if you're a police officer, if you're in the military.
You're pounding coffees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just making cold brew and making it for work, making it for our friends at work. And
what would you use? Did you actually seek out anything, or were you just
I was using really bad stuff.
Sure.
I was just using whatever I could get at the time. I would go to Whole Foods or I'd go to Publix, whatever I can grab on the shelf and make cold brew, and just started developing taste. And
so how do you make cold brew? Because I'm an idiot in this world. I'm great at drinking it. I know shit about it. So
the way we make ours is we do equal parts coffee to water,
Okay.
and we let it sit for 18 to 20 hours overnight, and we strain it in the morning.
Okay.
It's a really, honestly, it's a simple process. The way we do it, some people get a little more intricate with it, but we just steep 5 pounds of coffee with 5 gallons of water in a big old sock. And in the morning, every day, we strain it out, put it in a keg, and run it on some nitrogen and serve it on tap.
Molecularly or chemically, what is that achieving? What is that doing? What's the point of doing it that way?
With cold brew, you get a less bitter taste.
Okay.
So you get all the coffee flavors, and you're using more coffee to brew your batch.
So taking the acid out of it?
You're getting a much less acidic coffee.
Okay.
And because you're using so much coffee to get your end result, you're naturally going to get high caffeine.
All right. You're talking my language now.
Yeah. So high caffeine, smoother, less acidic. So a lot of people that have stomach problems or, issues with their teeth, they sometimes switch over to cold brew.
I have both of those things, so I need to think about
same.
cold brew. Yeah.
So
I'm crushing the generic brand, the Omeprazole, the Prilosec off brand. And then, I have my yellow tooth that when I was a kid, I was coming in from the pool and I slipped and I nailed my face on the door, whatever you call the little rail that goes across the bottom of a door. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
So, and it killed the root of my tooth. So the tooth calcified. And I've gone to dentists, and my whole wife's family are orthodontists, and it kills me because their teeth are just pristine. And they all drink tons of red wine, but my teeth look like a bag of candy.
Did it turn
corns.
blue?
But
I had a friend I grew up with.
It didn't do that. I've seen that. It didn't do that. But the end of this gross and kind of irrelevant story is that for me to whiten my teeth, I either need to have them put a veneer on that tooth and then bleach the rest of my teeth to match that color, or I need to bleach my teeth to the color that I want them to be, and then they'll put a veneer on. But I can consume no coffee or red wine during that time period, and
Oof.
I'm the cold brew of wine and coffee, meaning I'm equal parts wine and coffee. That's pretty much how I get myself up in the morning and how I get myself to bed
You
at
have
night.
to pop some caffeine pills.
Something, yeah.
Geez.
So anyway, but so that's interesting about the cold brew. So you kind of were self-taught. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And what year would this have been when you were working?
2014, 15, I was working at the hospital doing all this. YouTube and how to make coffee. Literally YouTube, how to make cold brew. YouTube, how to pull an espresso shot.
So just from a timeline perspective, I know when I started to become more aware of these off-brand shops, like I listened to I listened to the Mark Maron podcast, and he's got a coffee that does his own special brew. Justcoffee.coop or something like that. And there's all these little mom and pop shops. When did those really start popping up?
So, like you said earlier, the last 10 years, we've really...
Has it been about 10 years?
It's been about 10, 15 years where, if a coffee shop popped up 10 years ago, no one really can remember or even have the conversation about it. And you had mentioned earlier Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and thankfully they've paved the way for...
they've got everybody hooked on the product.
Well, and they've got guys like us being able to charge $4 for a cup of coffee. Because my parents, there's no way in hell my parents are dropping 4 bones on a cup of coffee.
Oh, for sure.
Like you said, the can of Folgers. My mom every day grew up can of Folgers on the counter, big old pot of coffee, and that probably cost her pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
So you're getting essentially slave cultivated coffee, bad quality coffee, nothing sustainable, and luckily
Thank you for bringing that up, and make sure I don't end this podcast without talking to you about sustainability and kind of the agricultural and ecological aspects of it, because that's definitely something I don't do notes for these shows, so I have to kind of keep it up here, and
no problem.
I'm not as sharp as I used to be. So anyway, so past 10 years, that's about when I started noticing it. Now, as far as, with wine, we've got Napa, Sonoma, we've got, different parts of Italy, we've got France, we've got the desert, and all these different areas where the climate is such to cultivate the grapes that you need to make wine. Obviously, Colombia is the first one that comes to my mind with coffee. What are kind of the areas that we're getting coffee beans from, and what are there differences in taste from this part of the world versus that part of the world?
Absolutely. So Brazil is going to be like the leading producer of coffee. The largest amount of coffee farms. Colombia, obviously, up there as well. But coffee kind of did start in Ethiopia.
Oh, really? In Africa?
In Africa.
Okay.
Many, many moons ago. If I told you a date, I'd be lying. But
well, that's fine. Just make it. No one else here knows.
From my YouTube university teaching, the goats were eating coffee beans off the plant, and the goats were, getting active. So that's when coffee became. They said, "Hey, let's try consuming this." Yeah. So they started consuming it, and so Ethiopia, you'll get a lot of good coffees. Anything with high elevation.
So high elevation, does that have to do with temperature or moisture?
A little bit of soil quality. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into the farming and cultivation of coffee. Are
there sommeliers of coffee? Is there a similar type of thing?
So you'll have like Q graders who will grade coffee, who will grade green coffee, who will grade roasted coffee.
Okay, you're going to need to explain all that to me. I don't even know what that means.
Coffee's a cherry. It's a fruit.
Okay.
Essentially, there's a seed in the cherry, just like the cherries that you get at a store. There's a seed in there. It's deep pulp. There's 2 main ways to go through this process.
Okay.
They'll either do a wash process or a natural process where they literally, pretty much everywhere you go, each bean is picked by hand.
Right.
So when it comes to that price of coffee, like the work that goes into one coffee bean it's insane when you really think about the whole process of getting a coffee from crop to cup.
I'm going to go off on a tangent here because that's a analysis that is true in many aspects of business that I don't think people realize. I see it here as an attorney when I send someone a bill and they'll say, well, the case just started. And I was like, do you know how much I had to do to just get your case started? I had to file the notice with the clerk. I had to go online and get your file. I had to print it out. I had to make my file. I had to call opposing counsel. I needed to set up an appointment with you. I needed to go through and do a conflict, all this other stuff. And there's an interview I was listening to somewhat recently with Chad Muska. Do you know who he is?
I don't.
So he's a skateboarder. He skateboards.
Oh yeah, Chad Muska. Yeah.
So he, in his later years, after many injuries, has become an artist. And they were talking to him about what one of his paintings goes for. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you a number, but let me tell you why it's that number. He said, most of my pieces will probably go between 10, 15, 20, 25 grand, but the space that I have to rent to do that in costs me this much per month. To stretch a canvas costs me this much per month. The power to light the studio costs me this much per month. The paints and supplies cost me this much per month. For me to show it in a studio, they get 50% of whatever I sell it for. Yeah. So by the time that person pays for that painting, I don't see 10% of what I'm charging for it. And so there's such a dissonance, I think, in the consumer world from understanding the pricing, why things are priced the way that they are. And it doesn't make it any better. I mean, $15 is $15 or $1,500. I mean, it's still relative to what money you have. It doesn't matter what went into it, but maybe if people kind of understood now that's not always true. There are areas, of industry where, pharmaceuticals, the work that's going into it versus the amount that's being charged is vastly different. But like you're saying with these coffee beans, with art, with, attorneys who are billing hourly, if I'm charging a client $400 for an hour for divorce, I'm not putting $400 in my pocket. I'm paying my bar dues. I'm paying my staff. I'm paying my power bill. I'm paying my sales and use, so all this stuff.
And then 30 days later, Uncle Sam wants his cut.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's almost like I can almost do nothing and make more money than what I'm doing right now. Not that I'm looking for anybody to feel sorry for attorneys, because I know that's a losing battle. But anyways, I digress. So getting back to your point about the coffee bean and why it costs what it does and the amount of work that goes into it, you were describing to me kind of geographically where things come from, what plays into different strains or different types of coffee. So go ahead.
Yeah. So we're not a roaster, so we use roasters to roast our coffee for us, right? So they're going to have relationships with the farmers, and in a perfect world, they'll have a direct relationship with the farmer. And that
does it go farmer, roaster, to us, to you, or a distributor in between, or
usually there's going to be some sort of middleman.
Okay.
We've gotten to a point, and then coffee's at its renaissance right now. The last 3 years, specifically, in my opinion, since we got in the game. It'll be 4 years next month for us, but I'd say between 3 and 6 years, coffee's just at its renaissance now, where people are learning, wow, there's a family in Colombia, and all they do is grow coffee. And they're selling this coffee to this middleman who's got a shipping company who's taking the cut. He's making his coin, and this family's unable to put food on the family. So by cutting out that middleman and working directly with roasters or people that are just sourcing coffee ethically here in the state specifically, we're able to not guarantee, but we can, provide a way of life for
a good product and an ethically sound product.
Exactly. A good quality of life for whoever's picking the coffee, farming the coffee on that side of the pond.
It's funny to me because, and maybe I'm, I always think I have some great novel concept and everybody else is like, really, you just thought of that. But it seems to me like the structure of what has gone on with wine in the past 20, 30 years, there's really no reason that couldn't be where coffee is at. I mean, if you look at it, I have to imagine there's more coffee drinkers than there are wine drinkers in the world. I would venture.
I would make that assumption.
You don't need to be a certain age to drink coffee, right? You can operate a vehicle when you're drinking coffee. Yeah. There's no correlate to alcoholism with coffee. So you can, it's acceptable to drink coffee all day long. Whereas
you found a 12-pack before noon, you get looked at weird.
I'm tired of having that argument with the guy at Circle K up there on the corner. So the audience or the clientele or whoever it is that you're appealing to seems to be much greater.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you can kind of impute value to something and make it almost a collector thing or I don't know what the proper word is for it, but I'm come from two school teachers. So collectively, they probably made 40 grand a year. So I by no means came from a wealthy family. But my wife's family, they've been pretty successful. And so I'll go have dinner with them and they'll bring a bottle of wine and they'll tell me about this bottle of wine, how much it costs. And I'm just like, my testicles shoot up into my stomach. I'm like, and to me, I can have I've never purchased this, but I've had the opportunity to go have dinner with them where they'll have bottles of wine that are like $800 or $1,000 and I'll taste it. And it's like, that tastes really good, but it doesn't taste $790 better than the red velvet I'm getting up at CVS or Walgreens. Not to knock it. I think it's great, but I just don't have that. For me, Irish Catholic, I'll drink potato whiskey from it. It doesn't matter. So, but with coffee again, do you agree that there's kind of a model there to follow
Absolutely.
With wine? I mean, it really seems like there's an opportunity for there to be, this has happened recently with whiskey and bourbon. Everybody's going to Kentucky and going on the bourbon trail or whatever. And, I think that's only been within about the past 5 or 6 years. Now everybody's talking about that.
There's an insane resale whiskey market right now.
So, I mean, I kind of feel like that's where coffee is headed.
We'll do coffee tastings and a lot of it's a little different with wine where it's going to depend on like the winemaker. It's going to depend on the roaster.
Sure.
So we can get the best, we can get the best green coffee from Ethiopia and 2 roasters. One could absolutely botch it and one could do a phenomenal job.
Right.
So, and luckily for us, we have great local roasters we're working with. So we're working with people that know what they're doing. So we can go have a tasting with them and we can taste coffees from Honduras, Ethiopia, Colombia, Brazil, all at one sitting. And that's when you really develop your palate and say, wow, this coffee from Brazil's got notes of chocolate and banana. And, if you have a really developed palate, I actually don't have a great palate, but then you'll taste a coffee from Ethiopia and you're like, wow, starburst, apples, and cinnamon. Like you really, just like with wine, you have a wine tasting, you look at all these notes and you start to taste these different notes in coffee. Whereas before, especially my parents' generation, it was either you're putting a ton of cream and sugar in coffee or you're drinking a black, bold cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like a farmhouse boy,
Well, so I've always struggled with my weight. And one of the big, contributors is when I start sussing up coffee. So I've really, I've had periods of my life where it's straight black and I'm back there now. And that's why I love what you guys do is a good black coffee and a Folgers black coffee are worlds apart from each other. And that's how I'm able to kind of do it is, find something where just naturally the taste, the flavor is there. You don't need to, like you say, pour tons of shit in there.
I like to compare it more to the craft beer scene.
Okay.
Where
yet another example.
Even a smaller, I think, time frame was like, 6 years ago, nobody drank a High Life from Cigar City or,
I had seen Joe Redner Sr. on and Joey Jr. is supposed to be coming in here.
Nice.
They're looking at a place up in North Carolina right now. And that was something previously they were looking at doing was getting into have you been to Asheville?
I have. Great town.
Oh my God. And the beer scene there is
beer, coffee,
on top of it.
Lovely.
Yeah. I love that place. If I could take the bar or if I didn't have to take the bar to practice law up there, I'd be up there.
Better weather
tonight.
Better
oh, for sure. But no, probably, I don't know probably what's newer, the craft beer scene or the bourbon whiskey scene. Those almost kind of seem to have popped at the same time.
Absolutely. I would have to assume that I just think the beer scene's more common and more practical for people going to a bar down the street.
The oldest hipster. Yeah. All of a sudden, the hipsters knew about coffee and beer just out of the blue. Before, I don't know what it was, Well, then you have weed as it's going to, very possibly be, fully street legal here in some way, shape, or form.
I'm a medical marijuana patient myself,
So I, there's all this. So these are kind of these areas that you can kind of curate and kind of become an aficionado. And there's something to that really appeals to people psychologically, like knowing about wine, knowing about coffee, knowing about beer, knowing about
it's like a hobby.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited for you about it and your world about it, because I feel like in some ways it's in its infancy and really could turn into a whole great movement. Yeah.
My big thing is, I want to give people a drink they enjoy, whether that's a black cup of coffee or a ton of milk with a little bit of coffee and sugar in it. There's just, I think that counter culture kind of thing, way of life with coffee
getting
now.
off of the mainstream markets
Exactly.
too. I was talking to somebody. Well, I've had for some reason, the synchronicity of life. I've talked in the past week to 3 different people who have their own chicken coops, and they're talking about how everybody's been hitting them up for eggs. And we started this conversation of with social distancing, with maybe mass markets like we've seen before might tend to kind of taper off a bit, because getting something from a farm or getting something directly from, apart aside from all the other considerations, like we talked about the ethics of it, or, what's the phrase that you used for coffee? Sustainability, that sort of thing is, I almost wonder if there's going to be a renaissance for private
groceries in general.
Private groceries, private
I think
markets.
there should be.
Well, I have a buddy over in Scott Bitterly over in St. Pete, and he's I'm going to forget what the phrasing is of it, but he's really into instilling sustainability into neighborhoods and cities with like public gardens for the homeless. And
I was hoping you were going to get into that.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Like, I don't think there's like I kind of like pride myself on my front lawn. Like, I got this nice green grass. I cut it up, but like, why don't I have like a bunch of tomatoes?
Yeah, someone can just come by, pick
peppers,
it up,
and then my neighbor could have, and I don't even know if this will grow in Florida, but sweet potatoes and okra. And hey, let's just, instead of going and spending money at Publix, who made, I think, like record numbers during COVID. They did like $2 billion more than they normally do at this time of year. Like, instead of going to Publix and getting groceries, like, why don't I just go over to Josh's house and be like, hey, you got okra? I'll give you sweet potatoes for my okra.
And you're probably not getting any pesticides.
Exactly.
And some of the other.
And it sounds, if you talk to some, they're like, this is crazy. What do you live in the 20s? Like, well, why not change things up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I don't see what it would hurt. I mean, it's always nice to have options.
Yes.
So as far as the farmers that you're getting your coffee stuff from, how do you set up those relationships? I mean, are you going to those farms and seeing them firsthand? Have you done that?
I unfortunately have never had that experience. We work predominantly with 2 local roasters, Zeal Coffee Roasters and Eastlick Coffee Roasters. Eastlick also owns.
So the roasters are local, or are the farms local?
The farms are not local, no. So there might be people growing coffee in Florida or even in the U.S., but it's not going to be good quality coffee just because of the climate.
Okay.
So most of our coffee recently has been coming from Colombia. Like our house blend year round it's a Honduras and El Salvador blend. But one of our roasters, Joel with Eastlick Coffee out of Oldsmar, they own Yellow Rooster, which is an importing company. So they have direct relationships with the farms. They go out to the farms, know the farmers by first name. Know the family, spend time with the family. So they get to go and see the entire process from start to finish, from going to the farm, getting imported here, roasted there.
That sounds rad. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
And if you ever go to Colombia, let me know.
Yeah.
I would love to go with you.
I want to go.
Not for the reasons that some people go to Colombia. I would like to go. I have a member of my family who has origins in Colombia, and I would like to know more about Colombia and kind of see it just from that perspective.
I'm trying to plan a trip out there. My neighbor owns a shoe company, and they have a factory in Colombia.
That's awesome.
And he's trying to set up a mountain biking excursion in Colombia. So you land there.
Bikes too, shoes, that's another part of your life that I'm interested in.
Absolutely.
So anyway, well, that's cool. So the roasters locally are kind of how you made those relationships with the farmers.
Yeah, and they caught us when we first started and we were using bad coffee, and they're like, hey, you want to not use bad coffee?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, let's give it a go.
Like, I should use good coffee.
I was at Coppertail in Ybor serving coffee on Sundays with a food truck, and we were serving like a dark roast. I wouldn't say it's a bad coffee. It's an organic coffee. It's ethically sourced, but it wasn't the greatest quality. And the guys from Zeal came by and they're like, hey, try this stuff. And when I met them was really when I was like, all right, now it's time to nerd out over coffee. I want to get to know how I can make the best cup of coffee, how we can make it better and do it right.
Do you have that? Is that part of your personality to kind of go down rabbit holes with something?
Yeah.
What other rabbit holes have you gone down?
Oh man, that I'd like to publicly announce.
Sure. Yeah. We'll leave the cosplay and the
mountain biking and gravel biking right now. I've just been like in this deep hole of like, all right, like got to get all the cool gear, got to go to all the cool spots, plan these trips. Like, let's get after it.
So I bought that Kids Ride Shotgun deal specifically because you
mentioned it
had
to you,
it. And I have this, I'm similar to you. If you go in my garage, now I only have 5 skateboards in my garage, but at some point.
We got about 85 here.
Well, I got all the decks here, but I've told my wife and the IRS that this is decoration for the office. So tax write off. I had, I'm trying to think of the SE racing bikes, I had a Fat Ripper or whatever it was.
The SE Flyers.
Yeah. Have you ever been to
the Hub?
The Hoskins, the bike place right here?
Joe Haskins, yeah.
Have you ever been in there?
Yeah.
That guy's like badass.
Yeah.
He's pushing 100, it seems like.
Dude, you can't even get near that place during Corona.
Oh, for sure. There's a line out the door. But then if you go to the back room, he's this guy. He probably doesn't want me talking about this because those bikes appeal to a certain subsection of the community that aren't, into paying for them. But
he's got metal bars. He's good.
Oh, I think he's been there forever. I probably have a neighborhood uprising if anybody screwed with him. But I bought one of those, and I had all these dreams of jumping hills and doing all this stuff. And I keep forgetting that I'm 45 years old. Yeah. So I finally, luckily, my older cousin, who is more immature than I am, decided he would buy it off of me.
Nice.
He's got a kid who's like 12, and so they ride it together. But I went and got more of a responsible bike, and it's an extra large frame. And I didn't consider that when I bought that Kids Ride Shotgun deal, which if you don't know what that is, moms and dads out there, what's the name of the company? Is that the name of the company?
Yeah, I think it's Ride Shotgun.
Ride Shotgun or Kids Ride Shotgun. And basically what it is instead of a regular kid seat for your bike, you basically are fastening a seat post to your frame and a smaller set of handlebars to your handlebars so your child can actually sit on the frame and hold the handlebars much in the same way that you're doing. And it's kind of a cooler way to ride around with your kids. It kind of lets them be a little bit more involved. You've got them in front of you, not behind you.
They're not staring at your back.
Yeah. Which, if you've seen my back, does doing my kids a huge favor. So, but anyway, so the bike thing, how did you get into that?
About 10 years ago, I was working in the ER in South Florida before I moved up here.
South Florida where?
I grew up in Pembroke Pines, which is in the Everglades.
Sure.
Grew up with the mosquitoes and the alligators.
Sounds like a great place to go bike riding.
It's like the Wesley Chapel of the Everglades, honestly. It's just like a boring subdivision. And I was working with these guys that were mountain biking, and I had no idea mountain biking is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get on a bike and ride around a lake that had a dirt road.
Right.
And we get out on these trails, and we hit the warm-up loop, like a big old sign that said, hey, you're on the warm-up loop.
Yeah.
So we do this warm-up loop, and we get done, and I'm just like, holy shit. Like, I'm out of breath, dying. I was like, you guys are messing with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, no, that's it. And I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And I did about 2 hours of mountain biking my first time. I got this bike that it probably broke the first day out there. And I was just like hooked ever since. And
a real mountain bike versus the mountain bike that you see at Target.
Yeah, I had like a sports authority
you don't ever
bike.
want to take your Kent or your Huffy or whatever it is out there because you're going to walk out with two
and your tail between your
tires and broken frames. So I was what's the place that's on? It's on McDill, closer to Kennedy. It's a bike.
Flying Fish?
No, that's on.
Oh, they're closed now.
No, that's on McDill. What am I thinking of? No, that's not on McDill. That's on
Outspoken.
On where am I thinking about? It's closer to the bank, and then there's Pipos, like the Cuban place. It's right up there, right past Swan on the right side.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. That is McDill. I don't know.
McDill? Yeah.
Was that Outspoken bikes?
No, Outspoken's on Dale Mabry over there by Beta Bay. Anyway, that's fine. One of the phenomena of this show is I forget fucking everything when I'm on the show. And as soon as it's over, I'll remember every location name and every other thing that I'm trying to think of. In any event, I was there and this doctor came in. You could tell he was a well-heeled guy. And his kid came in and this bike was like, it didn't even look like the same species of what people think of as mountain bikes.
Bikes.
The back forks kind of have shocks on them and the tires look like, Batmobile tires and every other thing. It's crazy. So in Florida though, mountain biking, like where are there trails just everywhere?
That's why I was like, I'm going to go ride my bike around this lake with dirt, but and they're man-made trails. So I rode Markham Park in South Florida. It was insane. I'm talking like, imagine a rigid skate park almost, there's just jumps and drops and rocks. And then I moved out here. I moved to Tampa about 8 years ago. And after living in Soho, when I first moved here in my glory days, we rented a house out in Lithia.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea what Lithia was, but it was a cool house. I was like, let's go live in Lithia on an acre. Yeah. So me and my now wife rented a house out there. It was down the street from Alafaya.
Oh, sure.
And there's Bomboyette out there as well, which from what I've been told is an old phosphate mine.
Yeah.
So they're carved out. And I mean, you go out there. I bring people out there and they're like, what? We did not expect this. Yeah. I never expected it.
Sure.
But there's anywhere from a green, blue, double black diamond mountain bike trails. And some of the best trails in the state or in the country for enduro cross country mountain biking are here in Florida, in Tampa. LFI is rated like number 1 in the state.
That's badass. Now you have at least one child, I know.
I have one that I know of as well. Yeah.
Okay. A boy or a girl?
She's a girl, Savannah. She is 17 months old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So how's
that treating you?
It's going great, man. I was working, drinking a lot of coffee, but I was working full time, and then COVID-19 popped off, and we kind of kept grandma at home, and I went to like working full time to being a full time stay at home dad. My wife's a nurse, so she's busy, and I've been staying home with the baby, and I've kept her alive during the whole coronavirus quarantine thing, and we ride bikes every day, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been a blast. I had never thought in my life I'd be a stay at home dad.
How have you adapted your business in the face of COVID?
So we've definitely been on the fortunate side of things, being a mostly to-go concept anyways. Sure. But we implemented online ordering. We just had both of our facilities sprayed for sanitation, and I got to just thank our local community for like having our back during these times. Like it's been unreal, the amount of support we've got.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've been able to stay busy during this time and just
now. Pivoted. Do you have partners, or are you the sole?
Just me.
Okay.
Yeah, just.
And
me.
Is this the first business you've ever run?
It's the first business I've successfully run through the IRS. Yeah. I tried dabbling in some things when I was younger. Just ideas.
No. So, how are you finding that? Are you enjoying that part of it? I mean,
yeah, I really like it. I had another venture with a partner, and everything was great, but just like being able to just I have a really good team. So
how many people do you have working with you?
I've got 6 employees total now.
Okay.
We had 8 pre-quarantine, and they left not because of quarantine and COVID, but they were going on to other ventures. I had a guy go off to the service. So we're down to 6 now. So we're running that skeleton crew. Mm-hmm. But we got a great team, and I say I get to make all the calls, but I put it on their plate. Like
it's a democracy.
Yeah. They're there all the time and say, what do we need to be successful? I'll make it happen.
Now, did you have a background in healthcare? Were you a nurse or a?
I was a prosthetic sales rep. I sold prosthetic legs out of college. Out of my year in college, I didn't get a degree, but
I feel like there's a joke there. But
I was selling prosthetic legs for about 2 years. Then I moved here, met my wife, and the company wanted me to move. I wanted to stay, so I wound up staying in Tampa. And then I just did registration in the emergency room at St. Joe's, kind of an entry level position, and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and then started drinking coffee and got super lucky.
So I know that we don't know what the future holds as far as, is the earth going to be a burning cinder in 6 months, or are things going to be back to normal and all that? But hypothetically, if things do get back to semi-normal in before the end of the calendar year, beginning of next calendar year, what is the vision for Spaddy's Coffee? Are you happy with where you're at? Do you want to grow? Do you want to spread further throughout Florida and national? What's the?
So when I first started, I wanted to grow. I wanted to have shops all across every cool city I could. Hey, Spaddy's in Asheville. Spaddy's in Savannah. Wherever I could, find a cool town.
Sure.
And then after opening a second venture down in South Tampa, just realizing being a sole proprietor, you spread yourself thin. Having a 1-year-old at home, I think right now I've just kind of got the brakes on growing.
Well, you're focusing on what's important.
So cool. I want to have fun with my family, and we have the shop right here, which is in my backyard. So I want to just keep these 2 shops community focused and try to keep that grassroots feel going without growing too fast.
Right. So not sure by design, but somehow we kind of did this one backwards. I kind of started at the end as far as your business without talking much about your background. So where are you from originally?
I'm from South Florida, born and raised in South Florida, just outside Miami.
Now, you're a pretty tall guy. Did you play basketball? Did you play football?
I tried to play basketball. I wasn't very good.
Right.
I played baseball growing up. And then I actually...
Pitcher? First baseman?
First base.
Okay.
Pitcher, catcher.
Got some height on you.
And then, like 9th, 10th grade, I was like, screw this. Let's just go smoke weed and not do
Were you a skateboarder? Did you ride BMX?
I was a fruit booter.
A fruit booter.
I was a skater, a rollerblader.
Oh,
the skateboarders would, there's like a clash.
So how old are you?
I'm 31 now.
Okay, so I'm 14 years older than you are, but yeah, that puts you at right about the right age for when that was big.
Yeah, I was like a freshman in high school. I was
you ever get into street hockey or do any of that stuff?
We used to play street hockey and sneakers as a kid, but I wound up when I was probably 10th grade, started playing golf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I started playing golf with my dad. And
still do that?
I still do that for fun. But
Did you watch the Jordan Bulls documentary, The Last Dance?
I'm on episode 2.
Isn't it amazing?
It is.
It's
really
so
cool.
good. I just finished watching it, but there's a huge part of it dealing with golf.
Yeah.
So
he's an avid golfer. I mean,
well, he's an avid golfer, but then he would, when he was playing other teams, he would try and play the night before. And there's like one story about how he plays Danny Ainge the night before a game, and Danny Ainge beats the pants off of him on the golf course. And so then Jordan scores like 69 points the next time on the court.
He's got to beat me on the court.
Yeah. Well, and then there's, all the stuff with the gambling and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I saw in the first episode, he kind of threw his team under the bus and like ratted them out.
Yeah.
Their partying habits. I was like, whoa, Jordan.
Well, that was the old Bulls. That was before the team that he was really with. But I think that was probably true.
But yeah, golf was my thing.
There's too many of cocaine mustaches in sports in the early 80s. It was kind of, I don't know that AC Green did it, but he just looked like there's just people who had that look about him. Anyway, but so golf. Well, I mean, obviously Florida is a nice, nice place to.
My grandfather played golf his whole life, and I got hooked. I met a kid that was on the golf team at my high school.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, I play golf. And he looked at me like sideways. He's like, you don't play golf. I was like, all right, let's go play some golf.
Yeah.
And wound up playing golf, and then went home and told my dad. My dad got back into it. And from 10th grade to my senior year, I played high school golf.
Oh, wow.
And then I wound up playing for a Division II college in North Carolina, small Division II college.
Oh, so you do know North Carolina.
And I was in Charlotte for a year as a freshman in high school. I didn't venture out much. But I kind of focused more on partying than playing golf, unfortunately, and wound up getting kicked off the team and staying in Charlotte for a year, not going to school.
Right.
Just like I'm 19 years old in a city that I don't know anybody. What am I doing? And then came back home and did the whole community college thing, gave that up, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after. I don't, man.
You're an only child?
I'm an only child.
Love it. I'm an only child too.
Yeah. I keep telling my daughter she's going to be an only child too. My wife's not too thrilled about that, but.
Well, that's a funny story because my dad didn't have me till he was 38, and I always felt like he was an older dad, and I didn't want to be an older dad. I wanted to be a younger dad, and I also, as an only child, always thought I wanted brothers and sisters and all this other stuff. So my plan early in life was to have kids early and to have a few of them. But I met my wife in law school. She had been previously married. We decided that we kind of wanted to enjoy each other before, encumbering ourselves right away. So we were married for 11 years before we had our daughter, who's now 6. And once we had my daughter, I was just so head over heels in love with her. You know how it is with the little girls. I only know my experience because I've only lived it, but there's always this thing about guys wanting boys, and I really didn't care one way or the other, but I understand that, you want someone you can go play sports, whatever the thing is. But the love for this little girl, it's so intense and strong and passionate, and
it's insane.
It's its own thing. And so when we had her, I was like, I don't think I could have another kid because I feel like I'm cheating on her, or like, how can I love another child as much as I love her? Is it going to take away from the love that I have for her? Is she going to feel less than? And that fucked with me a lot. It really did. And finally, we got around to having my son, and luckily, all my fears went away. And it's been thrilling to have them both. They love each other. I can't tell you. My version of heaven is looking over at them with their arms around each other, watching TV, or my son leaning in to kiss my daughter on her forehead. I mean, I can pretty much die. Like that's the highest achievement in my life. Just
that's awesome
that I put that into the world and see that.
The fear of that second kid's definitely real. I told my wife like 2 days ago, I was like, man, I like our daughter. She's cool. I love her to death. Like, what if I don't like the next one?
Right.
Like, then what? Well, obviously that'll, sure. It's just a fear. It's just a comical fear.
Well, and candidly, there's a lot to, being an only child that probably the listeners on the show are bored to death of hearing because I talk about it all the time. But the impact of being an only child on your personality, your psyche, your anxiety with a lot of kids is very great because they become very empathetic with their parents because they don't have siblings to distract them. So they become very aware of their parents' stressors, their parents' issues, and that sort of thing. So in that regard, I kind of like it. I also like the fact that when my wife and I expire, that my kids will have each other, hopefully. So those things are all appealing to me, but I'm good at 2. My brother and sister-in-law have 3. I'm like, you guys are fucking nuts. There's no way. It's like, God gave us 2 hands for a reason. We're not
one boy, one girl is ideal.
Oh yeah. And yeah, it was definitely a blessing. And they're just amazing. My daughter's a little movie star. My son,
My daughter's 6.
My son is 2, and my son is the coolest person I know. He's got this stoicism about him. I'm not very kind of, what do you call it? I'm not into the mystical. I'm not into, star signs or reincarnation or anything, but the phrase old soul, I've never seen it more applicable to a person than my son. We'll go into a room of people and there's a look that he has on his face like he's read the room already. He kind of has sized everybody up. He knows what's going on. He's not shaken by it. He doesn't seem impressed or unimpressed, but I don't know. There's just something about him that it's really
Kids are funny, man. There's just like no filter too with these kids.
What's your daughter's personality like?
She's definitely a firecracker. Yeah. Yeah. It's actually funny you mentioned that because last night was the first night during lockdown that we actually took her out to a restaurant, went up to the Independent. Yeah. And shout out to them. They have like amazing social distancing guidelines. I
went there and 100% agreed.
Yeah.
Like they shut down every table.
Every other table was shut down. Yeah. And there was 6 of us, all family friends. And it was the first time she's been around everybody in the last, 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. And it took her a good 10 minutes. She's checking everybody out. And you just see her eyeing everybody up. Yeah. And then on that 11th minute, she's like, all right, y'all are cool. Yeah. And y'all are going to do whatever I want to do in this next hour you guys eat. Dance. She's running over to somebody and they're going to put their glass of wine down and they're going to put their food down and they're going to give her 100% of their attention. And she runs the show. She's definitely, she's a funny little kid too. She's got a little sense of humor on her already.
That's badass. Are you much into music?
A little bit, not a big music head. I like, I try to support like a lot of local artists and stuff. And I'm a hip hop reggae guy. Yeah. Something like the new school reggae. And
did you go to the festival over in St. Pete when it comes?
Reggae Rise Up. Yeah. We were supposed to go this year, but that's
killing me. So my big thing is live music. And it's weird because I am not a social person. I don't like crowds. I kind of like to be a homebody and all this stuff. But the one thing I like going to see is live music. And I think I'm correct in saying that I've not been to a show in 2020 and it freaks me out.
I think I've been in one show. Like we did a little show at Crowbar. Yeah. Before,
I don't know if you've been following Tom and everything he's doing.
And shout out to him. We actually, so this Saturday, the day after tomorrow, with Forward Thinkers, we're doing a collaboration at our courtyard at Seminole Heights for Spaddy's. And we're doing a limited 30-person live concert. Oh, wow. If you want to come by, let me know.
I would love to. I got to ask my wife. I think we're
Bring
going.
the kids.
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
it's a reggae band.
I'm down.
We've limited it to 30 people. We're fencing it all off. We're doing temperature checks at the door.
That's badass.
Yeah. So it's also intimidating because I don't want it to be like, oh, hey, venues are closed, bars are closed. We're doing something here at Spaddy's. So what we've done is Spaddy's is closed. We're literally just using the property to do this concert. The band's name is Akiva, A-K-I-V-A.
I know them.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're coming to jam out in the courtyard on Saturday, 30 people. It's going to be a good little time.
So I had this idea and I've talked to my buddy, Greg, who is in Wolfface. And then I've talked to Tom about it. Did you see the most recent Dave Chappelle special, the 846 or whatever?
I did not.
Are you aware of it?
I've heard.
So he's done it. And then who's the guy that does Hot Pockets and the comedian, pale guy with white blonde hair?
You got me on that one.
This is always going to kill me. I'll remember it as soon as the show. Really big comedian, like one of the top 5.
He's not from Tampa.
No. He's you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm going to Google it while I'm talking to you. Any event. So what Chappelle did is he lives up in like fucking Ohio, like in a farm or something. And he did this stand-up routine where they did a generator in a farm. So they built a stage out of barrels and wood planks and shit. People park like way far away and they set these tables up like 20 feet away from each other. So he basically built his own comedy club in the middle of a farm, so that
This was recently during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, this is since George Floyd. I mean, because the whole routine's about that. So he did that, and it was interesting to me because it was a great special, but he found a way to do his art in the face of what's going on, and it seemed like it worked pretty well. Well, then this other comedian who I'm about to hopefully Jim Gaffigan is who I'm thinking of, who also has recently done a special like that. So let me put a pin in that. I'm a huge fan of Queens of the Stone Age and Caius and a lot of these quote unquote desert rock bands. And one of the things that they always used to do is have generator parties. So they would go out in the middle of the desert with this big fucking generator, just plug in, and they would play all night long. And I mean, there's tweakers out there and every other thing going on, but we don't need a place. We don't need anything. We'll just do whatever. And I had this dream of doing something like that locally with local bands, a generator, and just go out in the middle of Ocala or Lutz or wherever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I not understand. What my point is I'll be interested to hear how your situation goes because
I'm interested too.
It sounds like it's the first step in that direction, and hopefully we get back to being able to go to the Crowbar, go to the Orpheum, go to the Ritz, go to wherever you're Janice Landing, whatever. What's the place now called? They changed the name of the place in St. Pete on Central. Anyway,
they changed Janice?
Not Janice. It's State Theater. They changed it to St. Pete's Wine and Cigar Bar or some shit. I forget what it was. Everybody's all up in arms about it. But anyway, hopefully that comes back. But I would love it if a new venue or a new type of live music came about because of this.
Yeah, definitely things like this are going to, I think, change for the long term.
It's a Black Swan event. So there's this great book. I recommend it to everybody. The title is something about Black Swan, but it talks about how these once in a lifetime things happen that completely change the direction of society and the world. And for better or for worse, that's happened with this. So to the extent that we can make the best out of it, whether it's with what you do, with what I do, with music, with art, I'm really hoping that art, and I know that it will, because art has survived the Holocaust, has survived World War II, has survived, fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah. It's survived.
It's made it through everything.
It'll make it through COVID, but what that's going to look like afterwards is interesting to me. So
a lot of virtual stuff, and
I can't tell you how much I appreciated you coming down and learn it. Before you go, because I wanted to ask you about this. What is green coffee, or what are green coffee beans versus?
Coffee comes off the plant.
Okay.
Out of that fruit, it's a green bean. They dry it. It's a green. It's literally, it tastes like crap. It smells like crap.
Okay.
And then it's imported and roasted. And once it's roasted, that's when you see that brown bean that you're used to seeing when you buy a bag of coffee.
Okay. So what you're buying from the farmer is that's what you're talking about.
What you're buying from the farmer is the green bean. It's the raw product.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So before you go, you've got two locations. You've got the one on Gandy and McDill.
Inner Bay and McDill down in South Tampa, where we share that one with Raw Smoothie Co.
Okay.
And then we have our original location here in Seminole Heights next to Fiato's Bakery on Florida Avenue.
My receptionist is part of the Fiato family.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, great. And then you said you have an online presence where you can order from there as well?
We're doing all online ordering. Well, you can do online ordering now. We have a little retail merch shop online, Spaddy'sCoffee.com.
Do you do any promo codes?
Right now, if you use promo code 727 to 813, you get 50% off your online order through August 13th.
Guys, use that promo code. Go on there, get your coffee. Stop going to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts all the time. There's better stuff out there. All right, Greg, it was a pleasure having you by.
It's been real. Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.